A Neanderthal stirs awake at the mouth of a rock shelter as the first gray light of 7 in the morning breaks through the fog. The fire, fed carefully through the night, still glows faintly in the hearth, sending up a thin curl of smoke toward the low stone ceiling. He sits up slowly, his breath visible in the freezing air, and looks around at the rest of the band, 15 people wrapped together in hide furs for warmth, limbs overlapping for shared heat against the cold. He leans forward and adds a small branch to the embers, coaxing the flame back to life. He blows gently against the base of the fire, watching the wood catch before pulling his hand back. Around him, others begin to stir. An older woman checks on a sleeping child nearby, pulling the furs tighter around the small body and resting a hand briefly on the child's shoulder before rising herself. A younger man near the back of the shelter rolls onto his side, groans quietly, and presses a hand against his ribs where an old injury still aches in the cold. The first man stands, stretches his thick, muscular frame, and walks to the entrance of the shelter to survey the frozen landscape outside. Frost coats the grass in every direction, and a thin mist clings to the low ground between distant rock outcrops. He studies the sky for a long moment, judging the weather, then glances toward a stand of trees on the horizon where birds are beginning to stir. After a quiet moment watching the valley, he turns back inside and sits near the fire. He reaches for a fist-sized stone core resting beside the hearth and begins striking flakes from it with quick, practiced movements, angling each blow carefully against the stone's edge. Sharp slivers of flint fall away and scatter across the dirt floor. He examines each flake before setting it aside, some shaped for scraping, their edges rounded and dull, others sharp and thin, suited for cutting through hide or flesh. A younger member of the group sits beside him, watching closely, his eyes following every movement of the older man's hands. The boy reaches for a discarded flake and tries to strike it himself, missing twice, the stone skittering uselessly away, before landing a clean hit that splits off a usable piece. He holds it up, turning it in the firelight, and the man beside him gives a small nod of approval before returning to his own work. One by one, finished tools are laid out on a stretched hide in front of him, hand axes with rounded grips, flat scrapers, several sharpened points with narrow tips. By mid-morning, he picks up a long wooden shaft, already smoothed and straightened, and begins binding a stone point to its end with strips of dried sinew. He pulls each wrap tight, using his teeth to hold one end steady while his fingers work the binding around the wood. Around him, other hunters do the same, checking the balance of their spears, testing the weight in their hands, running a thumb along each blade's edge to judge its sharpness. One man swaps a chipped point for a fresh one, discarding the damaged tool into a pile near the wall. The group of hunters steps out from the shelter and moves across the open, frost-covered ground in a loose line, spears held low against their bodies. Their breath rises in pale clouds with each step. In the distance, a herd of wild horses grazes near the edge of a shallow ravine, tails flicking, heads occasionally lifting to scan the open plain. The men slow their pace, spreading out silently, using the gentle curve of the land and a scattering of low boulders to stay hidden from view. One hunter raises a hand and the others stop at once, crouching low into the tall, frost-stiffened grass. They wait there, barely moving, watching the herd shift and graze without concern, until the lead hunter signals again with a small motion of his fingers. They move forward in a wide, careful arc, slowly pushing the herd toward the narrow edge of the ravine without alerting them to the danger closing in. A horse near the back of the herd lifts its head sharply, catching a scent or sound, and breaks into a run. The hunters react instantly, closing the distance in a burst of speed. The lead hunter drives his spear forward with both hands, bracing his full weight against the animal as it twists and struggles beneath him. Two others close in from either side, thrusting their own spears in quick succession until the animal's strength finally gives out and it collapses onto the frosted ground. The men gather around the fallen animal, chests heaving, sweat cooling quickly in the cold air. They allow themselves only a moment before beginning the work. One kneels and draws a sharp stone blade carefully along the hide, opening it along the belly with a long practiced motion. Others move in immediately, cutting away sections of meat with quick, efficient strokes, separating muscle from bone and setting the choicest pieces aside first. The liver and other organs are removed and wrapped separately, prized for their richness. Once enough has been gathered, the remaining meat is divided into manageable bundles, wrapped tightly in sections of hide, and lifted onto shoulders for the walk back. Back at the shelter, an older woman and two children sort through a pile of gathered roots, nuts, and dried plant stalks near the fire. One child picks through a handful of small tubers, separating them by size and setting the larger ones into a hollowed wooden bowl, while the other watches a pot of water heating over the coals. Nearby, the woman works a stretched hide with a scraping tool, pulling it taut across a wooden frame and drawing the blade across its surface in long, even strokes, removing the last traces of fat and tissue. She pauses occasionally to check the hide's thickness with her fingers before continuing. In the late afternoon, the hunters return, walking slowly under the weight of the meat carried over their shoulders. The group at the shelter rises to meet them, some moving forward to help ease the heavier bundles down near the fire. The meat is laid out across a flat stone surface, and several hands immediately set to work, cutting it into smaller fire-sized pieces and placing them directly onto heated stones near the flames to cook. The smell of roasting meat begins to fill the shelter, drawing even the youngest children closer to the fire. The band gathers close around the flames as the meat cooks, the firelight catching tired, satisfied faces streaked with dirt and dried sweat. The woman who tended the hides earlier now turns her attention to the food, passing pieces of cooked meat around the circle, starting with the oldest among them and moving outward to the rest of the group. Everyone eats together quietly, hands and faces lit by the flickering firelight, occasionally exchanging brief glances or a low murmur as they pass pieces between one another. As the sky darkens fully and the temperature drops further, one man carefully places a small object near the fire, a smoothed flat stone marked faintly with traces of red pigment. He turns it once in his palm before setting it down with deliberate care at the edge of the hearth. He sits back against the rock wall, watching the fire for a long while in silence. The rest of the group follows one by one, lying close together under their furs as the fire slowly burns lower, its light dimming across the walls of the shelter. The last embers glow faintly as the group falls into sleep, bodies pressed close for warmth, breathing slow and steady. Outside, the valley lies silent and dark beneath a clear, star-filled sky, the cold settling deeper over the land as the fire inside continues its quiet, careful burn through the night.